Okay, so as you all see from my biography, hello, hi. As you all see from my biography, my name is Sherrie. I work on a couple of the BRICS Business Council working groups, which is how I got to be here. One of those is manufacturing, and another very important one is skills. And it's quite interesting. Rikus and I were talking, and Prof, you were also talking about the need for skills, and I'll also address some of that as well. Sorry, I need to sit forward so I can see people. In addition to that, I have my own business called African Innovators, which looks at utilizing the scorecard, particularly around enterprise and supply development, to link to business strategy, to make it relevant and worthwhile for businesses to actually spend the money and then deliver the points on that as well. And it all interlinks. While it sounds all like, what the hell is she doing here? All of this interlinks in one key thing, which is around making a difference. That's my key purpose in life. So how do we make a difference in people's lives? We give them skills, we help them find jobs, we help them create their own jobs, we give them more skills so they can improve all of that again. Okay, so that's me. So we're going to talk about three things, and I'm going to take a little bit of a different view from the two previous speakers. We are going to just look at Fourth Industrial Revolution because we always make this assumption that we all have the same understanding of what 4IR is. So just hands up quickly. Who thinks they know what 4IR is? Okay, so not many. All right, so it's a good starting point. So we'll have a look at that. We'll look at the technologies that are driving 4IR, and then I'll give you my perspective of what I think we need to do in South Africa and what we need to adopt in South Africa. If we can get this working. There you go. All right, so this is just a history of all the four industrial revolutions. By the way, people, World Economic Forum in particular, are also already talking about the fifth industrial revolution, but nowhere can I find a very clear definition of what that is. The biggest thing it is like 4IR, but with a people aspect. If you think that we're still battling from a South African context in the third, parts of the third still, a lot in manufacturing specifically, and fourth, I don't think in South Africa we really have a handle on yet. I recently presented at a BRICS Skills Conference in Brazil, and the topic was, what are we doing as South Africa, what are the 5 BRICS countries doing around 4IR? And if you look at what South Africa is doing, there are fantastic examples, but if you look at what we're doing as a country, I think we're way behind our BRICS partners as a general thing. So we have the fourth industrial revolution. And what's important, and I think one of the activities is also actually in government structures, there's a BRICS 4IR forum. And one of the things they talk about is we need a consistent definition of 4IR in South Africa. And for me, I see it as the kind of intersection of manufacturing, automation, and cyber ICT type of systems, and how those all come together to create a pathway for increased efficiencies, better production, decreased cost of production, and all of those subsequent benefits that we can leverage in South Africa in manufacturing. How about I just tell you and you move it? Okay, will you change for me? So it's not just me having technology challenges. Okay, so while we try and get to the next slide, maybe one day we'll get there. I'm happy if you guys want to share the presentation as well. Okay. What the next slide actually should show one day is it's actually a view from a consulting company called Roland Berger. And a couple of years ago in the BRICS Skills Working Group, we did a project or analysis on BRICS readiness for 4IR. And things like number of robots per country, artificial intelligence usage per country, all of those kind of things. But one of the diagrams that came out of that project is this slide that you're meant to be seeing, which shows how 4IR would play out in a manufacturing environment. 2 more. Next one. There you go. So that would show out how, shows how all of these technologies connect and intersect in a manufacturing environment. And it shows for me, the reason I love showing this slide is it shows the complexity of how this all fits together. And I think that's key. And if you take that out of this, then I think we're doing okay. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, the next one, the video. Okay, so if we look at the mega trends, the big things that are happening, that's kind of a summary, but if we unpack some of that stuff, cyber manufacturing, so the intersection of ICT and manufacturing, unmanned transport, Prof talked about drones, but unmanned everything. Unmanned trains, unmanned boats, unmanned aeroplanes, unmanned cars, unmanned trucks. Think of that from a South African context. What does that do to us if you have unmanned everything? Human-machine connectivity. That we will develop languages, or machines will develop languages that they can talk to us better, and we will connect and communicate with them. That will play out in a workplace where we are working alongside, reporting to, and having robots report to us. Okay. Localized production, and I love this because from a South African context, the fact that everything will be locally produced. One of the things that's going down is those huge, big factories, because the cost of production, the cost of logistics, all of that kind of stuff just becomes too expensive. So localized facilities. Graham Codrington, I don't know if you know him, a futurist, talks about what, when, made in China becomes made in your living room. All right. Just think of what that can do to South Africa from a revitalizing the economy point of view. Greening, I think Prof, you also spoke about greening. Greening of everything. And one of the things going down is, one of the things we talk about is the destruction of entire industries that are not green. So if you're using something that's coal-based or whatever, think about that, because in all likelihood that industry will not be around. And the rise of personalized service businesses. So while we say that jobs will be lost in the traditional manufacturing, traditional factory kind of spaces, small personalized service businesses using these new 4IR technologies will rise and will grow. So there's another futurist called Thomas Frey who talks about 100,000 new micro industries being created using things like 3D printers, using things like some of the technologies that are out there. How cool is that? Imagine again what they can do to South Africa and its economy. Going down, we already spoke about large industrial facilities, manual labor, we know that. Centralized structures, middle management, because if there's no labor, why do we need middle managers? And everything not green. We spoke about that as well. So if we can go to the video, please. So that's just some of the emerging technologies. And when you look at this, a lot of it's like kind of, that's not here yet. But what if I tell you that 3,000 people in Sweden have already implanted chips into their hands that's used as their ID, it's used as their tracking, it's everything. Okay. We have people already working on something called a space elevator. So imagine being able to catch a lift to the moon. Okay. People are already doing this kind of stuff. They're already looking at this kind of stuff. Prof spoke about drones. I mean, drones being used everywhere, in every industry. Nanotechnology, an ex-colleague of mine is importing a film, which is a nanofilm, which you cover windows, cars, important stuff, and it's doesn't need to be cleaned, it protects the item, talking self-repairing stuff coming. All of that kind of stuff is already here and now. Talking genetic engineering, all that biotech stuff is also here and now. I don't know if you guys saw about a year ago that Chinese doctor that genetically edited the genes of a new baby or an unborn baby. Okay, that's here and now. And there's so much good that can be used from this technology. But if it's not well controlled and not well used, it can also be so dangerous. I always give the example of people who started 3D printing. I don't think thought about the fact that 3D printers can be used to produce a gun. Okay. But think about the things we are doing with additive manufacturing and 3D printers. Organs, prosthetics for people who need help, all those good things. The genetic editing or genetic engineering, all of that stuff, can have fantastic consequences if you have a child that's got a hectic disease. But what if it becomes another Germany? Second World War Germany, with gene editing and that kind of manipulation. So the controls and the framework within which we implement 4IR as South Africa is so key for me. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So for me, I often say I don't think we have a choice around what technologies we implement. If our businesses want to be efficient, they will have to implement some of these technologies. The how we do that is really, really key. And there are businesses in South Africa who've implemented 4IR technology without losing any people. It's possible. But it takes a very clear strategy and a very definite strategy of how you want to deliver that. It also takes using the 4IR technologies to assist people in that transition. Things like using augmented reality. So if I have to maintain that machine, I take my device, I look at the machine and it tells me what to do. So it helps with the skilling. Virtual reality, Prof talked about some of those kind of things. Virtual reality for training. Virtual reality for welding training, so we don't need to import welders anymore. We can leverage the benefits of 4IR as a country, but we need the frameworks around that. So for me, I have quite a different view. Prof spoke about what if we manufactured stuff in South Africa. We in the manufacturing working group talked about something called a technology bank. Because two challenges we have. One is we have this great innovation, but then all of that stuff lands up being made in China and we lose the IP. So we need some kind of technology bank which will help those innovators protect their IP and protect their ideas. And then secondly, facilitate that manufacturing in South Africa. So we have that local production capability. We need the regulatory frameworks. And I put it as regulate. I'm not a great person for lots more legislation and regulation. I think we have way too much of it in South Africa. But I think if we don't have it, things like cybersecurity. How's this for a statistic? I don't know if it's what the new stats are. A couple of years ago at Manufacturing in Davos, someone quoted this statistic. 80,000 connected, IoT connected devices in manufacturing in South Africa. This is 3 years ago, only 5,000 secure. Think about that. If we don't have cybersecurity, if we don't have the skills, we don't have the framework, we don't have the structures, everything that we do in this 4IR environment is at risk. So that's a big deal. Regulatory frameworks, things like e-government, making business admin, making business setup, making business compliance so much easier, could definitely be part of that. And then I also put under regulatory framework, digital infrastructure. Because without digital infrastructure, all this 4IR stuff is meaningless. If we don't have connectivity, we don't have data, and we don't have secure power supply, 4IR goes nowhere. Okay, so that's really, really key for me. And then down the other side, skills. Prof spoke about it already. But to identify what these future skills are going to be and set up the training programs to do that. Not, if you think about it, in South Africa it takes us maybe 2 to 5 years to develop a curriculum, another 2 to 3 years for training of that curriculum. Think of how fast technology is changing. If we're not doing stuff now, in 5 to 10 years' time, we'll have bigger skills gaps, not smaller ones. So we need to address those things, and we need to do that work now. Cybersecurity is a great one. Our BRICS partners all have qualifications in cybersecurity. From everything we can find, we only have master's degrees here. Why? Why don't we have a ladder of learning so people can move up in the frameworks and make sure our 80,000 plus connected devices are safe? Thank you.